Hey guys, this is Andrew, welcome back to the channel. So guys, this one's going to be a bit of book to screen adaptation with Shadowhunters. And guys, I've just been to the local library and got out some books to reread. And can we just shout out to Cassandra Clare and her writing as well? That is improving so much as well. But that being said, we have done a blog post on Magnus. Now it's time to focus on Alec. And there is an argument that Alec in the books is essentially the most mature of all the Shadowhunters. We also see in the books the parents are flipped. It's actually Robert who's more authoritarian than Marianne's. That's actually Robert that's more disapproving of the relationship than Marianne's, their parents. And we do see this is because Robert knows Marianne's role in the uprising and the fact that Marianne nearly killed Magnus or sent him back to Eden, because as we know, warlocks are immortal. We know that they can have a spell to kill themselves, but the question that Cassandra Clare in this world and in this such rich mythological world that she's created, we need to ask the question of where do the warlocks go when they die? But the Shadowhunters, we see that in the show they turned the Clave into a much more authoritarian organisation, where we see that in the books it is much more democratic and you can vote, but there are families that hold a lot of political influence and sway. And this is something that I wanted to touch on, is in the mythology of the world we have something called the Accords, which is akin to, say, a UN peacekeeping agreement or a UN general agreement of human rights, and it gives the Downworlders their rights, it gives Shadowhunters the laws that have to abide by. And this is where we get the saying that the law is hard but it is the law. And we actually in some later books start to see that Magnus was actually at this negotiating table with his then lover Camille Bellacourt. In having that, we do see that Camille and Magnus have got a lot of history, and it is quite a complex history. It is also intertwined with the life of Tessa Gray, who's half warlock, half Shadowhunter. And then we understand that the Accords, a lot of the older Shadowhunters didn't actually like them because they used to hunt Downworlders and take what was called spoils. So this is essentially the real world equivalent called looting, or war trophies that end up in a museum. And as we see with the British Museum having to give back a lot of the cultural heritage that they took from Egypt, from India, from Afghanistan, this essentially in the shadow world is what it stopped. And we see that by doing this, the older Shadowhunters had a lot of their wealth stopped. So there's two ways that the Shadowhunters have income, and that is tithing. And we see Jace refer to this when they're looking for the cache of weapons in the graveyard, and it turns out to be Mrs. Milligan's grave. And that is actually a throwback to the books, in that in the Victorian era in London, the Shadowhunters had a mundane servant called Mrs. Milligan. That is a throwback to when Tessa was a child as well. And then we also see that Jace mentions that the 5 major religions, so these being Christianity, Judaism, Muslim, Hinduism and Buddhism, all acknowledge the threat of demons. And then we see that they say, well, they used to, but there was a failure of mundane imagination because the shadow hunters have been doing their job that well, but they do continue to tithe. We also do see that for a shadow hunter that's down on their luck, in the books, that they live in the institute, or they can go to the institute and be protected. However, we do see that for some, since the Uprising and the Dark War and the Mortal War, which are events that happen in the book, and I'll do some videos on them a bit later, that the Institute is more a gathering place and a war thing, and so for those who are involved in the uprising with Valentine and in the Circle, they are punished to run institutes, and we see that Hodge was the most harshly punished in that he can't ever leave the New York Institute. In the TV show, they made him a lot younger. In the books, he's actually elderly. He's a Lightwood children's tutor and guardian because Robert and Marius are often on mission. But we also then see that this is what allows the Lightwood children to go out on mission and to investigate who Clary really is as well. That is a really interesting book to screen adaptation because it follows Hodge's storyline and diverts it a lot more, because Hodge was essentially the one that kept the Institute running and then fed and kept the Shadowhunters Apocryphy. And I know I mangled that, guys. Apocryphy, their potions, kept stored because he grew medicinal and magical plants. We also see that Hodge had a lot more information on Magnus than he actually lets on. We do see, and I've talked about Magnus in other blog posts and videos, that Magnus is known to the Shadowhunters, but there is a mistrust on both sides because of behaviour of both. And so we do see that this is a challenge. Magnus is such a rich character to explore, but so is Alec, because Alec is one of the more openly gay Shadowhunters in the show, and we do see how he comes out in quite a spectacular fashion. Spoilers, goes at his own wedding, but then in the books we see that Clary is not actually punished for creating new runes. In fact, she is blessed with this ability, and it is encouraged by the angels. Where we do see in the show, when it was ended due to copyright, financing and ratings coming together to come to a head, that they had this as an ending. That she was punished and she left the shadow world. But this is the thing, has she completely left it? Because we see in the end scene she actually reveals that she can see Jace. Jace and Alec, I'll do a whole video on the whole Parabatai relationship, because there's no, as they say in the books and the show, that there's no earthly bond that can compare to this. But guys, I just wanted to do this video around the Shadowhunters and see how it goes. If you like this channel, please give it a like, share, subscribe, and I'll do more videos like these.